Okay, I think that's the first bell. I've got limited time, so I'm just gonna go mock speed. Okay. I am Jay Justice. I'm with India Missions. I grew up in Magnolia, Mississippi, and went off to go to Harding. And basically, after I went to the Harding School of Theology, then I ended up most of my career in Arkansas, where my family was originally from. I have preached since I was 16 years old. After I got my master's in theology, I never did preaching for money. I preached every Sunday, taught every Sunday, Wednesday night, you name it. But I just always did it for free, and a lot of churches that couldn't afford a preacher, that's what I did. And then even planted a church 26 years ago that we go to now, and it's just busting out the seams. We got about 300 every Sunday, and it's amazing. It's fun. It's wonderful. But I retired with FedEx after 43 years of service in December and started with India Missions January 1. I actually took a month of vacation and went to India October 2023. So some of these pictures will be some of that, and some of that will be when I went for the first time as an employee of India Missions, January and February. Now we go twice a year because we go on a tourist visa. India does not want Christian missionaries. You're not allowed in the country. So we fly under the radar, but we follow all the rules. So we go as a tourist. We go twice a year. You have to leave the country. When you leave, you can't come back for 3 months. That's Indian law. They're supposed to be changing that, but right now, that's what we do. So I go back again August 16th. We'll return October 7th. And go back again January, February. That's kind of the times we go. And the reason we go then is you don't want to go during monsoon season because things may be flooded. You may not can get where you're going. You don't want to go when there's summer, which is March, April, May. Because it gets like in the 120s. Last year I noticed it was like 126. Even Indians were dying. It was so hot. So we try to go when we can do the most good. And so those are the times of the year that we go. I want to talk a little bit about, India has a lot of beautiful places. It also has a lot of beautiful people. It's not a mistake that only the United States and Venezuela have more Miss Universes than India. And not very many more. And it's just because they've got the skin tone that you go to a tanning bed to get, okay? And then when they smile, it just pops, and they're beautiful people. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the beautiful church. So this is kind of the way most churches in India are. They're house churches. The general average size of a church in India is going to be around 30. Now, there's going to be some bigger churches. There's going to be some smaller churches. But there's a lot of churches. Now, India Missions, we're not the only ones that go to India, but we are the biggest group that go to India. We have 7,500 preachers that we work with. Now, most Indian preachers, they don't just preach like we do at one located congregation. They preach at multiple generally. So I don't know of any Indian preacher that doesn't preach at two churches. Generally, they preach at 3. I know some that preach at 4. But they don't have a time frame mindset like we do. We all in America meet about the same time on a Sunday morning, thereabouts. There, they'll meet at 9 o'clock for one service, go to the next one, and it'll be at 11, and the next one will be at 4, and the next one will be at 6. I mean, that's the way they do it. And so it's not a real complication, but this is the way most churches work. There are 6 of us, and if you got some of the newsletters, that shows all our team members. And I'm the newest member. Everybody else pretty much on the teams that have gone to India for like 30 years or more. A lot of experience. I'm the new guy, but I'm the one that's more geared toward education. So I go and teach the preachers. We have preaching schools over there, and I teach the preachers. Generally, what's amazing about teaching preachers in India is you want to train them there so they'll go back to the local community, grow the church there. You don't want to bring them to the U.S. and go to, Harding or Freed-Hardeman or whatever, because then they'll never leave. They come to America, they're never going back. That just doesn't happen. So you train them there, they work there, it's less expensive, your dollar goes a long, long way in India. And the other thing that's great about it is the preachers we train in India, they don't just stay in India, they go places we can't go. We've got preachers that go to Iran and Saudi Arabia, places that Americans could never go preach the gospel. So it's kind of a win-win-win. But this is one of the schools. This is at Surapet. Generally, we have like 20 in each school because we house them and feed them, and they go preach at their little churches on the weekends. This is at Nerdicella. It's a bigger facility, so we have still just 20 preachers, but if I'm there teaching, this is the kind of crowds we get. I mean, if you're there teaching the gospel, people just show up because all they have generally is just the Bible. To do sermon prep, I mean, to go into all the details that I went today for that sermon, you don't just get that out of the Bible. You've got to do a lot of research, things like that. They don't have those tools in India. They just have the Bible, which is kind of amazing, but they don't understand a lot of the Bible. For instance, you have to teach them why Matthew is different from Mark, is different from John, things like that. They don't realize the different audiences because they're just reading the Bible. That's all they have. So they need a little bit more education. So we kind of do continuing education even after they're trained from these schools. But if I'm there teaching teaching to the preachers or preaching, crowds just show up. But anyway, that's kind of the crowds we have. Now, the reason we are able to do so many churches in the way we have a model like nobody else does. Now, I've been at my congregation for 26 years since we started it, and I've pretty much done all the global missions for our congregation. So I know how global missions work, and we have some great works, but I don't know of any work like India missions. As I said, we have 7,500 preachers. Do the math, 2 or 3 times that in churches. We get a monthly report from every church we deal with. We get a GPS photo of the church. We can see how it grows every month by the GPS photo. We know where they meet. We can pop in on them unannounced and see how things are going. We have accountability that I don't know of any other mission work has. None whatsoever. And the way we do it is a lot like through this. So we have what's called, it's a KCMBI, it's an acrostic. It's almost for the Indian government because we can't be seen as missionaries, but we're more than welcome as teachers. So we do teacher training for these preachers, basically. We have team leaders that go to every one of these, like their little groups of 20. They'll go to one church like this where 20 will show up, and it's kind of a continuing education for the preachers of those churches. Every time they come together, they bring their reports of what their church has done all month long, GPS photos. We know how many baptisms, we know how many Bible studies, we know what the widows' needs are, we know if they need songbooks. We get all the information every month from every preacher that comes to these continuing education. And then we get a GPS photo of all the preachers that show up, all the reports. We get every month tons of information, which is just amazing. And again, there's more than 20 here, but that's because I'm there teaching, and it's just packed house. That's kind of what it does. This is another one in Jaipur. This is in 2023, and here we have 70 that we were actually teaching there. Jaipur is more of a persecuted area. Where we work in south central India is more of the Bible Belt of India. Jaipur is not. It's in Rajasthan, right next to the Pakistani border. So we kind of have to meet indoors in places that are approved. And generally, this is kind of cool that because we're Christian, the Catholic Church lets us meet in their places. When we were there at Agra this year in a different state that was in persecution, they let us use their auditoriums. They'll house our preachers. They'll feed them. The only thing they charge us is the food they eat, which is a remarkable deal. This is a gospel meeting. So generally, I will teach from, say, 9 in the morning to about 4:30 or so, 5 o'clock in the schools. Then I go to those preacher meetings where we, continuing education for the preachers. And then we do our gospel meetings about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. The reason for that is because most of the people in India who we target, generally, almost all of the South, are low caste. The message of hope of Christianity is very appealing to them because they don't have a lot of hope. If it takes 26 lifetimes to be, where you raise yourself to you matter, can you imagine what the message of hope does? That God died for you. You're that important. It's really appealing to the low caste of India. But we have these gospel meetings because most of these are they're working in rice fields. It's very hard labor. They work from sunup to sundown. They can't come to a gospel meeting until it's sundown. And so what they do is they do their work. They go home. They get something to eat. And they show up 8:30, 9 o'clock. Whenever we hear that they're going to be able to get there, that's when we show up. And a gospel meeting, most of the time, is just a tarp on the side of the road. Now, I always take pictures of these assemblies like this, and I always ask permission. I say, I want to take a picture at the start of the service so I can show the people back home who we're praying for, because we are. And Indians are late to everything. I mean, you name it, they come sauntering in long after it started. But by the time this really gets rolling, there's not a place on the tarp for anybody to sit. They pack it in. Now, this just happens to be a gospel meeting. It's on the side of the road, right across the street from a brother's house, and they just jerry-rig a floodlight out there for you to have a gospel meeting. And I haven't had any gospel meetings if this hadn't happened. The power goes out every time I've been there, the power goes out 3 times during the sermon. So you better know your sermon. You don't need to be tied to your notes. You better be able to wing it, because that is India. And there's going to be a dog scratching in the middle of the road, and there's going to be a water buffalo walk down the road. Matter of fact, this last time I was preaching, and the dogs got to chasing one another, and one actually ran through my legs while I'm doing the sermon. But that's just India. That's just the way it is. And there's going to be a motorcycle come by and an ox cart, and you just do your business. This is another gospel meeting, and this time the floodlight is jerry-rigged right into your face so you can't see anything. But I want you to notice, because this is the way most of the churches are and most of the gospel meetings, look at the number of women. If the low caste, if a message of hope is appealing to the low caste, it's really appealing to the women. Because the women, even in a low caste family, I know men in the church, which, believe me, this is a teaching point, their wife won't even eat at the table with them. They serve, they work in the kitchen, they eat in the kitchen, they won't even sit at the table with their husband. That's kind of the way the women are in India. And so you talk about a message of hope, and that you matter, and that God cares for you. It's really appealing to women. So almost every congregation you look at, almost every gospel meeting you go to, 3/4 of the audience is going to be women. Hindu men, Hindu people are the easiest to convert, because their gods are always just on drunken orgies. Matter of fact, when you go into a Hindu temple, you have to ring the bell as you enter the temple, and that's to wake up the gods from their drunken orgy. Okay? That is not real appealing to women that want to worship a god. Okay? So the God Jehovah is a whole different animal, and they love the message of hope and what our God does. But also, just the way we treat women makes a difference. Women in India, and this is another gospel meeting in the streets of Hyderabad. The women of India are almost like slaves. And it goes back to everything. Even in marriage, every marriage is arranged, and it's all about dowry. It's all about money. And it may seem crazy, but even Christians will marry their daughters to Muslims or Hindus because they get more money out of it. And it's crazy, insane. So that's another teaching point. But the bottom line is, that's the place of women in India. It's been culturally like that for centuries. And so that's something we try to train and teach and help for them to learn how women are to be treated. That, you love your wife as Christ loved the church and died and gave himself for it. So that's something we teach a lot. But just in their culture, for instance, the shortest life expectancy of anybody in the nation of India is a widow. If a husband dies, the first thing they'll do, if the woman has children, is the state will take the children away from the woman because they think she can't afford to raise the children. The reason being is because the marriage is made on a dowry arrangement, it's financial. So these are all poverty level people. So they can't afford to take their daughter back into their family. They wouldn't do it. They would starve to death. So the woman generally is out on the street begging for food, and she lasts about 2 years. That's the plight of a widow in India. Now you take a Christian church and India Missions, we buy sewing machines for $90, we buy stoves, we buy cars. We set widows up in business. And the first one we did this like years ago, I got to meet her daughters who are now all raised, and she sent them all through college just because we provided a $90, even cheaper then, sewing machine, taught her a skill. She gets her children back from the state. She raises her family. They have a good Christian home. And, $90 makes generational differences. That's how you fix things in India. And when you do stuff like that, you know what happens? You get crowds of women at your church. You get crowds of widows that want to be a part of your congregation. We are the fastest growing New Testament church in the world, and it's not even close. 67,000 people are born every day in India, and the church is booming. There's so many people that haven't heard the name of Jesus, and we have, in 2024, just to give you some statistics, I told you we had 7,500 preachers, and then all those churches. In a church that averages about 30, we can't keep up with Bibles. Bibles we print in 5 different languages cost us $1.75 to $2 per Bible. The average church has about 3 Bibles in it. The more Bibles we have, the more Bible studies we can have, the more conversions we can have. In 2024, we had 41,000 Bible studies per month. Of that, we had per month $10,000, on average 10,000 conversions per month in India on the churches that we deal with. The more Bibles we have, the more Bible studies you can have, the more conversions you can have. It's just kind of a matter of math. But the church is growing leaps and bounds in India. I can't even begin to tell you how fast it's growing. But there are limits to it, and your dollar goes a long, long way. A Bible, if they were to go buy one themselves in the store, it would take them 2 weeks' salary to buy a Bible. We can provide it cheap, and it makes a difference in the way that the church grows. This is a gospel meeting in Hyderabad, I think I said before. This is where our office is in India. I was telling my kids, I've got a son in Northwest Arkansas. I've got one working on a PhD up in Canada. He's actually in the Arctic now, doesn't get to come home until September. But I was texting them, because you can do that across the world. One of my buddies, Joe, who's gone to India for 30 years, he doesn't like rice. That's all they eat in India. He was wanting a break to get some American food, so we went to get a hamburger. And I was telling my boys about us, we were getting a hamburger, and they said, I didn't even think they'd have that chain in India. And I said, you know, Hyderabad, y'all probably never heard of it. I never heard of Hyderabad before I went in October 2023. It's probably the 6th or 7th largest city in India. It blows away New York City for size and population. Population in India, it's the largest nation by population now. It surpassed China. There's just people everywhere. There's all kind of people that want to hear the gospel. So much so that in Hyderabad, which is kind of the Bible Belt of India, they just throw up a tarp and chairs and everything else. This is a street. They just blocked a street off and had a gospel meeting, and Hindus and Muslims walk by and nobody thinks a thing about it. But you can do that in some states and you can't. This is Simon Paul. This is one of my superheroes in India. Simon Paul came to the U.S. He got the golden lottery ticket where he actually came to America, had a job. He worked at Jiffy Lube in Houston, Texas. His whole career there, worked himself up to manager, was a manager of a Jiffy Lube in Houston for years and years and years, retired with Jiffy Lube, and guess what he did? He doesn't play golf. Went back to India, become a preacher. He preaches at 3 churches every Sunday. He's one of my superheroes. People don't do that. People don't go back to India. Simon Paul does. And here he is just praying over one of the newborns that they brought to him after church. This is one of his churches in Gachibowli, which is kind of a suburb of Hyderabad, kind of the up-and-coming area. There's, again, picture at the start of services, and so there's room there. But I guarantee you, by the time this service gets going, you can't walk through there. It's like every church in India, when it gets rolling, is a major fire hazard. I mean, it doesn't matter. The whole thing's concrete. I mean, you can't burn the thing up. But it's just packed in. This is another church that he preaches at, and this was one of my favorites. All the kids in the front. Now, this is the way it is in India. These little kids, they could be 5 years old, and as I'm quoting scripture, they can quote it with me as fast as I can go. Because the kids in India, they all understand English. The interpreters are for the older crowd. But all the kids up front, they know everything I'm saying in English. And they can quote scripture because, honestly, they don't have any distractions. I mean, they're not going home after church and playing video games. It is not happening. They don't have a video game. They couldn't have a video game. They're not going home and watching movies. They don't have a TV. They have nothing. They probably don't have the money to buy a ball to play out in the street. No distractions. That's why 5-year-old kids can quote scripture faster than I can. It's all they have is the Bible. It's one of the biggest forms of entertainment in their family. They study the Bible. They know the Bible. They may not be able to interpret it correctly because they don't know much besides just what they read. But that's what we try to do. Now, this same congregation, that little group right up front, this was my fun discoveries. In 2023 when I went, Sworn Olathe, the lady beside me, she's a widow. And she did a different kind of way for widows in that her husband died in a carpenter accident, and she had a son, Noah, who's in college, and the local hospital knew what kind of lady she was. They had a child abandoned on the front steps of the hospital, and they called her and said, would you take her to raise? And because the church helped her, she did. And the next thing you know, someone else is calling her. And the next thing you know, kids are showing up on her doorstep. And she had 12 girls that she adopted in 2023 when I went. Now, the 2 in the back are not. They're just church members. But some of those church members, there's a couple of girls ladies in that church that have good jobs, good middle-class jobs, which would be that telemarketer person that calls you that you want to hang up on. Those are really good middle-class jobs in India. Now, a good middle-class job in India will pay you about $350 a month. So your dollar goes a long way. And so the church helps her, some individuals in the church help her, and honestly, I send her some of my money because now she has 16 kids. I went over to go see just the living situation of the kids, and you could take a white glove, you wouldn't find a speck of dust anywhere. And all the backpacks and the shoes and everything are in order, and it'd have to be. You can't get 16 kids ready for school, and yet every morning she gets 16 kids ready to catch the bus. That's some of your brethren in India. That's just pretty awesome to me. This last time I went, this is one of the last churches I preached at. It's in Surapet, where one of the schools is. And generally, I'm going to do gospel meetings in the towns, communities that the students preach at, or maybe their churches, things like this. And this is one of the guys' churches. Vijay Raju had this church there, and we're going to go preach a gospel meeting. And we go there, and this little church is like, it's a one-car garage. I mean, you might could fit a Volkswagen Beetle in there, and I don't know what else you'd fit in. This is a tiny building. Now, I know there's a lot of people crammed in there, and it looks bigger like that, but it's not. I mean, it's kind of a wide-angle shot. And then by the time this church service gets going, it is packed. You can't tiptoe through this crowd. It's just a concrete building with asbestos roof, and they do asbestos there, but it's just kind of a sheet-type roofing. And I found out right before I got up to preach that Vijay Raju, who was one of the students in my class, I didn't know his name beforehand because I got all these guys I'm teaching, and they told me right before I got up to preach that he paid for this building, the construction, every bit of it, out of his own wallet. Now, he makes nothing. He is a subsistence, farmer. That's all he is. I don't know how he even got it, but over time, out of his own wallet, he paid to build this church. Didn't ask for a dime. Nobody even knew about us till we went and showed up. He had us come to his church, and he's proud for us to come to his church, but he built it entirely out of his own finances. And when I found out about that the next day, I pulled him out of class, and while everybody's on a tea break, because they got to have a tea break, got to have a bathroom break, I took him aside and gave him 10,000 rupees because that's the kind of faith we want to reward, and that's what we did. And that may sound like a lot. That's about $80, but it's a huge amount of money to him, and to repay him for like some of the expenses of building that church. But that's just kind of amazing. So that little church that's in that tiny little concrete building, that's his indebtedness to it or whatever. The children in India, I love them. I want pictures with them all the time because they're just beautiful. Love them, actually, full of energy. But nobody smiles in a picture in India generally. They just go stiff as a board. I don't know if it's maybe most of the photos are made back when a camera would shake and it'd blur. I don't know, but they get stiff as a board. So I'm on a quest to try to get them to smile. And so this is me getting them to smile. And the kid in the middle It's like painting him to try to smile, and then the other kids are laughing about it. But at VJ Raju's church, these are the kids, and I didn't even have to prompt them. They were just great. I remember when I went there, I said, I've been here for 5 weeks in India, and this is my favorite church. And the place exploded with like shouting and clapping, and they were so joyous because they're so appreciative when you come preach to them. Almost any time you walk into any church to preach, they almost immediately, when you even walk in the building before service even starts, they break out into applause because they see that like you've come all the way around the world to preach to them, to be with them, to worship with them, and it means the world to them. This was in 2023. Only time I've had this, but actually converted a Muslim woman. You can guarantee that she is a widow because if her husband had found out about her conversion, he'd kill her when she got home, and there's nothing they would do about it. She will probably spend the rest of her life in that garb, living in the same community, but she's a Christian, and she will do it. Her preaching will be subtle. It'll always be like that because that's just the way she's lived all her life. This is our data team. These are the ones that all month long, as fast as they can go, and I don't know how they keep them getting carpal tunnel, that enter in all that information about the church growth, how many people showed up, how many baptisms, how many sewing machines, how many songbooks, how many Bible studies. They enter all that in. We get a monthly report. All the information has to be in by the 20th of each month, and they have to have the report to us about a week later. So they are going 90-0, and they're just an amazing crew. The guy on the right, Prasad, was my first interpreter when I went to India, and he's just an amazing guy. He heads his team up. He also preaches at 2 different churches. But he's just a wonderful guy. It's a wonderful team, and they work really hard. This is a GPS photo. You may have seen these before, but this is one at a baptism. We get these for every church. We get these for every church continuing education meeting so that we know we have all the facts. We have raw data. You're not pulling any wool over our eyes. We can show up when you got a picture of this at your church. We can show up right at your church and know if you're meeting, if you're not meeting, how many are there, are we getting true statistics, everything else. We know more about our work than I dare say anybody else in the world. And it's amazing. It is actually incredible. Another thing that we do is we have what's called FCRAs. That's something that we didn't have. When I first went in 2023, we didn't have that. We were trying to get those started up. But what an FCRA is, a foreign currency regulatory act that the United States government started so that you can track money coming into the country and know that it's whether it's terrorist or not. And so everything's open and seen, and they can track all the money. Well, that's what we have now in India. So in the past, when we would go, you would carry money in your suitcase, on your person, whatever, or we'd have ATMs that would pull money out of banks in India. And of course, you have like ATM transaction fees, all that kind of stuff. And then nobody wants to carry that kind of money. When you go on ATM, someone like me with a white face going ATM, I'm a major target. They're gonna mug me and take what to them would be millionaire money. Okay, so we don't do that. We would always have our drivers to go do it, and they didn't like doing it. They got nervous going to an ATM. So now, because of FCRAs, everything's electronically done. We punch a button, and it goes from our banks into each individual preacher or data team or whoever into their accounts. We get bills that the church has, like maybe a roof repair or whatever. We can hit a button, and it goes electronically. There's not money change in hand. It's not dangerous, and we don't have all those other fees, too. It saves us thousands of dollars besides just being safe. That's the way we do business with India Missions, which I don't know of many people that do that. And I've worked with a lot of different missionary groups. This is Yesu's memorial. Now, Yesu was, the only way I know how to put this is like, it's kind of the Billy Graham of India for Churches of Christ or whatever. He was amazing. Every preacher, it seems like I've talked to in India, they go, Yesu converted me. Yesu brought me to the faith. Yesu was amazing. Joe, who's my buddy that I go with to my right, he's gone for 35 years. And he was at the start of the school at Surapet with Yesu. And he was the he did the eulogy. He knew Yesu very well, and he was the eulogy. Now, what's interesting is when we went to his eulogy, we show up, and it's like, it's a pole barn that dwarfs this church building. And there's easily 1,000 people in this pole barn. And think like almost like a cattle auction, big, huge metal pole barn. And people are seated just everywhere. When we drive up, TV cameras are filming us as we get out of the car like we're a bunch, like they're paparazzi or something, like we're somebody famous, because we're going to preach Yesu's funeral. That's how big a deal Yesu was. That's how big a difference he was in the community. And what's crazy is Joe preaches the funeral there, but if you're in India and you're an American, they're going to have you speak at anything and everything, and you just better be prepared for it, even though it kind of takes some getting used to. But after Joe did his eulogy, then Diaker, the person to my left, said, Jay, would you say a few words? And I said, oh, you didn't tell me. I didn't prepare. I didn't. He's like, well, brother, it would be a real honor if you did, and it'd be a real dishonor if you didn't. So I get up and speak, and that's what you do. And you do that everywhere. They had me as the featured speaker of the Kerala Bible College, and we awarded the diplomas, because if we're in country, they're going to have you do it. And so I spoke there, and it turns out I made great connections. This is a Church of Christ, all internet preacher training school that they do that there. And some of the preachers there even followed me and became interpreters for different languages for different places I was going. This is Yesu, the person that passed away. His son created a nonprofit, which reminds me too that Indian Missions is now a nonprofit, and so everything has to be done above board. They can track everything. You can track everything if you want to. Nobody's playing with the money. You can see everything that's done. It's all above board. We do things by the rules. But anyway, he created this nonprofit in honor of Yesu as a memorial. And they bought the trophies for the state of Telangana's chess tournament. Now, Telangana's huge. I mean, think almost like Texas size or something like that. And this is a state chess tournament. These are like in soccer where you have like U5, U7, U9, U11, U13, all that kind of stuff. That's the way the chess tournament was done. These are the most brilliant kids I've ever been around. So we show up there, and I don't look dressed for the part because, again, they never tell you what you're going to do. We were in between teaching class and teaching preachers, and we had a gospel sermon for like 9 o'clock that night. So I'm always trying to get everybody active. We're playing volleyball out on the grounds, and I'm in an India cricket jersey, and we're sweating like pigs. And they get a phone call, and they say, brother, let's go. And I'm like, go where? And they're like, come on. They don't even tell you. You just show up, and it's the India State Chess Tournament, and they have bought these trophies. A nonprofit Church of Christ group in memorial to Yesu bought these trophies, and we're going to award them. Little did I know that I was going to go do this, or I would dress accordingly, but it really didn't matter. I show up there, and all these kids want photos with me because I'm the featured speaker at the chess tournament. That's what they do. They just plug you in, and you just do the best that you can. And these are the smartest kids you've ever seen. Like when we walked into the state chess tournament, they were waiting on us. So they're just doing little exercises with a crowd of like 1,000 doing like, I don't know chess, but like G4 to M6, like rook conquers pawn, something. I mean, they're doing that blind, just saying it, and they know they can raise their hand and tell you what beats what. These kids were brilliant, and yet those are the kids that were influenced by a nonprofit Church of Christ organization that draws them from the community into the church. Those kind of things are amazing. And these are the kind of pictures, because we're on a tourist visa, when we go through customs and they say, okay, what have you done? Because if all we do is just preach and teach and do gospel meetings, they're never going to let us back in, because they don't want you doing that. They want you coming as a tourist. They don't mind you teaching. If I'm a teacher, I can teach in any church I want. I can do all that kind of stuff. And things like this, they can see a picture like this. They love us coming and doing things for the community. They love us coming to India to do things like that. They don't want missionaries there, but you can go on a tourist visa and do a lot of good for the community, and that's kind of what goes on there. I'm big. I'm kind of like Energizer Bunny. I try to get everybody active, and so I get the kids in the neighborhood. We play cricket, and that's the craziest game ever. A game that takes more than one day, I'm usually out, but that's their favorite game. So we play cricket, we play badminton, we play volleyball. And just to show you, like, the ball, it always gets lost. I mean, because there's rice fields everywhere. They grow a lot of rice, they eat a lot of rice. It goes into like a marshy area, and I go to get the ball, and they're like, no, brother, because they're very servant-oriented. They don't want you doing anything. They want to do it for you. And I was like, I can get a ball. It's not a big deal. The next day, I think I took it out of there. But the next day, they found a snake. I don't know if cobras are bad, okay? There are 5 snakes more poisonous than a cobra in India. The ball goes in the rice fields now, it can rot. I don't go after the balls anymore. I am not a big guy. In India, I'm a giant. They're not a big people, so I'm a towering giant in India. There's the snake. That's the one they killed. That's not a good snake. I end on this one. This is a gospel meeting. And again, you can see, like, there's a lot of women, mostly a lot of women. The thing that's interesting about this is this was one of the students in my class's churches, okay? This is a Pentecostal church. I'm telling you, when we teach the gospel, people show up. All denominations show up. And over time, they're converted because they want to study the Bible. We study the Bible, and they don't get it. They don't normally get people that study the Bible, and they love that. And so this guy was in our class, converted him from a Pentecostal preacher to a Church of Christ preacher, and now he's converting his congregation. This happens all the time. When you study the Bible, it's amazing what happens, but this happens everywhere, which is amazing, and another reason that it's one of the fastest growing organizations in the world. Because guess what? You convert one preacher, and then you convert the whole congregation. It's like multiplication. It's not just adding to, it's multiplying, and that's why the church goes. I know I'm running out of time. Any questions? I'm going too fast. Two or three times that in churches. And like a couple of the pictures I showed are in places that we don't have our organization set, like in Rajasthan or in Agra or different states. We don't have that structure set up. We'd love to. We don't have the money to be able to go to those areas. So it's just, we are restrained by money, which everybody is, and we do the most with what we can. Money goes such a long way. That data team I showed you, we pay them well. We pay them like a middle-class salary, $350 a month. Now, I'll just tell you, I'm having to go check on a couple places where I've gone to churches or whatever, and they've told me, oh, we support a guy in India or whatever. And I said, well, how much you pay him? They told me they're paying him $450 a month. And they were paying him $800 a month. I was like, you just made the guy a millionaire. And you're not getting any reports from him? Don't do that. Go through us, who we have like a system to keep tabs on everybody. And we know that people are doing the work. That's very, very important. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.